couldn't get my computer to work. TJ, you want to read today?
I can do that.
I was going to. I actually wanted to put it up on the screen, so it would be maybe the screensaver. I thought that would be cool. That is interesting that it was recording before it was supposed to be recording. That is one of the most interesting things I've ever seen. Good old technology. Well, we're here, folks. So we need some background people. If there's anybody out there who wants to help us uh, work the background of Zoom calls, if there's any engineering, producery people out there, it's obvious that we need you. But here we go. We are ready for our monthly discussion group. We call this Pieces Built Through Communication, and we would love to have you join us. We have 10 people who are trying to get in right now. Let's let all these people in. I don't know where all these people came from. Who are these people? You know these people, Jerry?
See.
You lead them here?
I did invite some people. I recognize some of these people.
Yeah.
There's a smile to my face.
Oh, I bet you recognize all of them.
Welcome. Divine friendship aspects.
Yeah, very good. Stella, let hopefully Mike will send you a text message or something like that when he discovers that we took this camera off because there was nothing happening there. So it's much better for us to be able to, have all these boxes full of live living people, Jazz and Jenny and Justin. If you guys want to come on the screen, that would be awesome. This is normally a discussion group, and we're starting off a little rocky, but that's okay. My name is Terrence Lamont, and I'm the National Peace Ambassador for this School of Metaphysics. And today is the day after Christmas. Did you get everything you wanted? I hope so.
I did. Anyone else?
Oh, of course you did, Nick. I wasn't even asking you.
I know. I goofed. I'm not there yet. I'm just trying to answer. I guess I was answering because I thought you were asking me.
I
I guess
appreciate
I
you
was
answering.
asking others. I guess I goofed.
I appreciate you answering. Yeah, so if you guys are on Zoom, then we would like for you to come on and talk, be a part of the experience. This isn't really like a listening deal. This is like everybody talk deal. So if you guys want to participate, we are inviting you to participate. Please come on and tell us who you are and where you're coming from.
Yeah,
And we'll
Terrence,
get what's
sorry
up.
to interrupt. Several people that I invited, I said that, participation was optional, that you could,
Yeah, so I'm changing
you
that
know,
now. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you
vibe
told them that.
and sit there.
I'm glad you
So
Uh,
no
told
no
them that.
pressure. No
No, there's
pressure to anyone
pressure.
I
There's
invited.
lots and lots and lots of pressure.
This is a
We
peaceful
got all the
discussion.
we got all the pressure. That's how you create diamonds, Jerry. Okay, so if you guys want to come on, you are welcome. If you don't, it's okay. All right, so Piece of Built in Communication, we do this once a month on the fourth Friday of the month. And so this is the last one. Oh my God, you guys made it for the end of the year discussion. Jerry is first time leading. He's never actually done this before, so this is going to be interesting. So we're all connected in some tangential way by the School of Metaphysics and the Universal Peace Covenant. The Universal Peace Covenant is a document that was created about 1997 by some teachers and students in the School of Metaphysics, and we still it's a living document right now because we keep it alive. So we still read it every day. We share it with the world in many different ways. And so that brought us here. That brought us to this about 2 years ago uh, to start doing this wonderful experience of this about an hour long discussion. Jerry is our moderator. TJ will read our preamble and we'll get started.
As it is established in the Universal Peace Covenant, excuse me,
And since peace is indeed built through communication, the open exchange of ideas is necessary for discovery and well being, for growth, for progress, whether within one person or among many. We come together here now in this meeting of hearts and minds to have a special or a spirited discussion. This is an open forum. This is not a class. There are no teachers, and peace is built through communication. Live YouTube discussion. In this experience, we establish the reality that we are all equal. We have a moderator who has been chosen prior and chooses now to give of themselves freely and does not wish to push or cajole or manipulate those who join here today or those who might witness this in the future. For this discussion, it is indeed designed to share ideas, experiences, and understandings, and by doing so, come to a greater truth through each one sharing their personal experience with sagacity, with equanimity, both free of prejudice, so that thus we will come to know that peace is liberty in tranquility.
It's all you, Jerry. What do you got for us today, sir?
All right, welcome everyone to this peaceful discussion. Now, when we're talking about peace, it reminds me of more how we respond to external stimuli. I'm an individual that identifies with having mood disorders, so a lot of times the internal environment can be quite chaotic, and things that may seem inviting to others may not seem as inviting and given a certain mood. But what I've learned is I have the option, the responsibility, and the privilege of responding. So no matter whatever the external stimuli is, or however I feel inside, I still have that, I can choose how to respond. And I have experienced how I respond. It changes my understanding of how I can create peace and harmony, how I experience it, regardless of my internal state. Like an example of it could be I'm invited to a certain musical gathering, but I am not feeling musical at all. In fact, I'm feeling the least musical. And previously, in this chaotic composition, I've opted myself out of that gathering, meaning because of my emotions, I shouldn't respond because I will be creating, let's say, chaos in a peaceful environment, or just disharmony in a musical environment. And how I challenged that is I told the occupants, the attendees, my mood, and I was like, yeah, I don't feel like I'm musical at all. I would probably bring down the gathering. Previously, I would just like ghost. I would just not even attend. I would just send a message saying I'm not feeling well. But I challenged it, and their response was, we still appreciate your presence, no matter however you feel. And in a sense, everyone brings their own instrument to the gathering. Like everyone has a voice, right? And kind of the challenge sometimes is to show up. And for me, a lot of experiences I've had is me showing up really changed the experience than if I wouldn't have been there. Like a lot of appreciation was dictated to me for my presence. And I still don't understand that. But now I feel like it's a responsibility. Not just for peace, but I'm an agent of harmony. Like an example is there's a disagreement happening. I'm not going to go into too much detail. There's a disagreement happening for some weird reason. And because I was there to intervene, there was harmony. because no one else would speak up. And I feel that every individual has that power. That, like every individual can bring their instrument to this orchestra we have. And you don't have to be silent. You could choose to be silent, but also being there in presence. Like everyone here observing this discussion, we're all experiencing it in the language of mind. Subconsciously, we're all communicating, even if vocally we're not. We all have thoughts. We're all contributing to this experience. And I really think that is how we spearhead into becoming a more peaceful society, is by just showing up to things. Not just jobs, right? Not just jobs, because jobs, it's like mandatory. We're supposed to show up and do the activity regardless of how we feel. I hear that. But also showing up for friends, showing up for family. You know, just being there. And even if you feel like you're going to cause a disruption, just testing that reality, seeing how they'd respond. Like, oh, this person would not want me there anyway. Or me just going there is not going to create any kind of happiness and I'm going to feel bad. Well, test it. Test it several times, because you'd be surprised with the outcome. That's what I have to share for now. If anybody has some feedback or anyone wants to share their experience, go ahead. Floor is open to you.
Appreciate the what you shared, especially the kind of analogy of the music, and how each one kind of brings their instrument. Each one, it's like, every individual has, some kind of talent, something to bring to the table, if you will. In doing so, it made me think about some songs that I listen to, that I've heard for years, and every now and then I'll hear something different in the song that I didn't hear before, or kind of isolate a certain element that's there that seems, kind of in the background, but if you take it out, then the song isn't the song. Like, it changes the whole song, and it doesn't matter, what it is. It could just be like somebody like lightly clapping or something, or a background singer's voice that's so faint you can barely hear it, but it adds so much. And I think that is true of us as individuals. And I've experienced that as well, where group dynamics change because of the different people that are involved in the group. And so when someone's missing, then the group dynamic is different. Their voice isn't there, their instrument isn't playing, their part of the song isn't heard, and so it changes the song. And personally, I think songs are better when all the instruments are playing. So, I appreciated that analogy very much.
Yes, thank you for sharing. Another thing that I've noticed is if you're around peaceful individuals, their tolerance is very high. They don't shy away from any kind of personalities. They practice equanimity among all. I'd like to bring about the example of my spiritual teacher. Like, there's so many, I'd say, individuals there that I would butt heads with, but around him, he's able to tolerate that personality. And it's just amazing. And being in his presence, he doesn't have to say anything. It just feels so peaceful. So I feel these great examples that surround us are good indications of peace and help us develop those qualities within us, like tolerance and patience, that can, I don't want to use the word embrace other personalities, but just create an opening where we can have a new experience. Get out of our stubborn minds where we think we know what's going to happen or how we're going to interact. And we might just find a quality that we really like within a person that we've butted heads with. I think that's what I like to see. But again, I guess it depends on the mood. I mean, we all have our tolerance until we don't. We're only human, right? And also embracing that humanness. That's why it's good to be around many helpful aspects, like friends. We're not alone. So having that entourage, even when you feel like you're alone, that's just like not true. I'm speaking personally for me. The times when I would be forced into feelings of isolation, it's not true. It's just my mind. And when I put myself into like a safe space, I would say, I get the experience of, yeah, I'm supposed to be part of this community, interacting. Like, sort of just to say, sharing my instrument, playing along, than just listening in silence. To my mind.
Just to play with that musical analogy a little bit more, I think about uh, like tuning an instrument. When the band gets together before the show, or any group or anything like that, they get everything hooked up, and then they test to see how it sounds, because the sounds change based on what environment you in, how the instrument's tuned. And I feel like you were kind of describing that a little bit as well. Um, when you said, the moods can change. I can be in a good mood one day, I can be in a bad mood one day, I can be, peaceful around this person, and maybe not as peaceful around this other person. And so, the instruments, have to change it up a little bit, in order to keep the harmony going. I think you mentioned harmony as well. Another thing you mentioned that really grabbed my attention was the you gotta try. And I think that's kind of the same thought is, if you never put yourself in the environment, then you never know, you know, what the music might sound like, or it may sound terrible. It may actually sound terrible and need to change, but you don't know that until you give yourself the opportunity to make that change or make an adjustment, even if the adjustment is don't be there anymore. So I've had all of those experiences as well.
Yeah, it's one thing when you're playing for yourself, like just playing a musical instrument, and you might be good playing it yourself, but then try playing in a band. Try playing with other instruments. That's like the true test of harmony. Because then you have to go with the same rhythm, balance the syncopation. It's way different than just playing to your own tune, your own beat.
So different.
I think that's actively working towards harmony and peace when you're just playing with among different instruments, different personalities, different people.
Remember a specific experience that was exactly that. It was a band performance, and I had been practicing on the saxophone. So I practiced at home, and that was one thing we practiced at. We had a small group at school, practice there. We did fine together, but then I think we were gonna do a thing where so the band teacher went to all the schools in the district. So we got all the schools together, all the bands are there, and we're gonna play a selection of stuff that we had practiced. Well, none of it we never played together, and so pacing's a little bit different, the sound's different. We're in a different room, so all of those elements that we described before, were there. The things that change that you have to adjust to. But I didn't quite get that at the time, and so I was committed to playing the way that I had practiced, exactly the way I had practiced, and it didn't mesh. And I thought everybody else was the problem, so I spoke up to the band director. Hey, everybody else is doing it wrong. And he told me to shut up and get in line. And I was shocked, shocked. But that was the lesson to take away, from that is, making the adjustment to be able to make music with other people, to be able to interact with other people. But my way isn't always the right way. And making the adjustment just makes the music sound better, allows you to be able to have that interaction that otherwise you wouldn't be able to have, because they'll tell you to shut up.
The good thing about that is it doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's so many different directions, so many different dimensions that can take, because the right thing is never singular. There's so many opportunities to feed into that musical experience. I want to keep touching on that song. I always feel like somebody's watching me. Michael Jackson sings background in that, and he didn't get any kind of credit for it or anything. But if you really listen, you can hear him. You know it's him. And most people will be like, "Is that?" You can start listening. Is that Michael Jackson? You think, no, there's no way Michael Jackson singing background in some song. That'd be crazy. But when you really listen to it, you can hear it. That's exactly what you recognize his voice, and the harmonic resonance is beautiful. But how did that happen? It's not, he didn't get paid or anything. He just made that decision because he felt like making that decision. Was it the right decision? I don't know. How can you say it's right or it's wrong? It's just interesting to think about all the possibilities.
I had a thought about that too when you're go along with what TJ was saying as well. When you're in a group or you have different voices, or like in that song Cancel Mine, maybe you step back a little bit, or maybe you allow someone else to speak up. It's the harmony of the group, and how can we all be harmonious together? And sometimes that's listening, or sometimes that is speaking up. And it's not always how I think it should be, or it should go this way, or that person needs to do this. Then we would all get along, or that person could do that. Yeah. So it's just being mindful and just, okay, showing up. And like Jerry, you were saying, like, sometimes you might not feel like showing up. And sometimes that's accurate for me, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't feel like being there. And then I'll go, and then I'll have a completely different experience. Or sometimes not so great. I'm like, oh, why didn't I just stay home? So it's just
I always reserve the right to leave.
Right, exactly. Yes, I could do that. So yeah, I have choices. Yay. So it can work that way. Lots of different ways to work it. Right.
Yeah, definitely when you get out there, you have more options than staying within and isolating. More options to, let's just say, have a different experience than what you think can happen. I think that's been like the my ongoing experience, just finding different ways to get out there. But going back to the musical note, when you're playing with other instruments, some are loud, some are soft, and you never know until you play together and someone's actually there listening and they're like, oh, I can't hear this instrument. So it's all about giving each other a turn. And I'm wondering, like, even now, like, how do we give everyone a turn? Like, encourage each other to play your instrument. Give you the spotlight.
But
You
see,
have an instrument. Go ahead.
seed thoughts are important. If anyone, came here thinking that, they didn't, that this was a listening experience, they could be in the crowd, then, that's what they came with, so there's something about that harmony that I think about with planting seeds. I, t- I try to live out like this. I was talking about this earlier today. I think that once I drop a seed, and if it's in fertile ground, and if there's something to give it what it needs to grow, then it's going to grow. And then it has a life cycle. And the resonance of what's surrounding it will just have to balance with it because it's going to live. It's not going to not live. I mean, that's what it's going to do. And so if I planted that seed for a elderberry tree to grow, I can't sit around and expect animals and, you know, people who don't like elderberries to come around. I planted an elderberry tree, so those things that like elderberries are going to come around. You just have to deal with that. I may not like them, I may not want them around, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm the one who planted the tree, so I'm going to have to deal with the consequences. So it's kind of that kind of an experience, but yeah, normally this is a good analogy. This music thing, this is interesting. A couple of years ago, I was in a cantata. I don't know if anybody really knows what that is. It's like a musical play or something like that. And I was doing a cantata, and I think it also has to do with Christianity. I'm not 100% sure, but these ones that I did all told some story from the Bible. And so we were doing one, and I didn't really have a place. I was able to come in, like what y'all are kind of describing. I mean, I didn't have a role necessarily. I was just allowed to be there. And, there wasn't a lot of male voices. So I was welcome in that way. And I'm not a world-class singer or anything, but I can harmonize and I can get down with most people. But I don't really know the songs that well. There's some songs I know and some I didn't, some I practiced, some I didn't practice. So we're doing this performance, and there's somebody beside me who has a soft voice. We were positioned like that because I have a stronger voice, she has a softer voice. And there would be parts of the song where I was like, yeah, I know this part. So I'd start singing it. But it was the part where she was supposed to be singing. And so I did that a couple of times for a little while, and she's like, it's like, this is my part. You gotta, stop. I was like, oh. So I had to recognize, that I wasn't creating harmony in that moment, even though that was what I knew what to do. I was like, yeah, I know this song. I was happy, but it wasn't the right time for her and for me and for the whole performance. The whole, experience was hampered by me not really listening. So it's an interesting way that things like that can go. So sometimes people tell a story like that and it strikes a chord with somebody and they're like, oh, I had an experience like that. So that's kind of how Pieces Built Through Communications popcorn style has worked in the past. So I wonder if anybody resonates with that story, and maybe you have a story or a situation that showed up in your life that was like that. Maybe you want to share.
Hi all, Jazz here. I just wanted to say something interesting about music itself. I think it's a really cool analogy. Um, it's actually energy, as everything is. right? It's no secret anymore. And it's real. Like, you know, everything vibrates, everything is energy. It gets you into a state of vibration. You know, you could be feeling a certain kind of way down, for example, and you start to listen to a music, type of song, and it just gets you in a cheerful mood. Or you can be, you know, you can be in all kinds of spectrums of different feelings just in regards to music and energy, because it's truly alive. You know, music is recorded energy, you know, and it's very powerful. Even our words, what we speak and what we spell, we are basically bringing it into existence. And I had a really good road trip. It actually went in the summer of 21. I went by myself. It took me about 4 months. I wanted to hit all the states, and I went to every single state except Hawaii, driving. Had the time of my life, and I've done a lot of inner work. I honestly don't remember how I found this Zoom, but I think that everything has a purpose, and I'm glad that I found it. This is really cool and honorable what you guys are doing here, and I just think it's great. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wonderful, man. Yeah, glad you're here. Thank you. Tangentially, that's an interesting word. It has a kind of a musical quality to it, right? Like, kind of how I think that's just how we got here, was just by pulling on the right string, you know, playing the right chord.
And somebody said something earlier about seeds, the elderberry tree and all that stuff. But I thought about a different kind of seed while you were describing all that, and that's the grass seed or whatever seed that falls in the sidewalk
Yeah,
and grows up through the concrete,
right.
where it's quote unquote not supposed to be. But what else is it supposed to do? It's a grass seed, and they grow. And it doesn't care that we think that it's not supposed to be there. It's doing its thing. And yeah, it may get cut down or it may grow wild. Either one of those outcomes is possible. But it doesn't care. Like the grass, it doesn't care. It's being grass. It doesn't care that it's a sidewalk. It doesn't care that someone built that sidewalk and thought it should stay perfectly just flat concrete. It's being grass. And while there's some balance to be found in social situations, I do think, and it's been my experience that the best thing to do is to be as much myself as it is possible to be in a social environment or in my connection with others, to just be me. Yes, we talked about like tuning instruments and things of that sort. As a matter of fact, we were talking earlier this week about what does it mean to be authentic, and my description was the most authentic. And this is illustrious or an illustration, but the most authentic person is like a naked person. They have no clothes on, but you don't go out into society naked. You probably are going to put on some clothes and adjust your appearance just a little bit. And so while you're not always your most authentic naked version of yourself when interacting with others, because there's social rules, if you will, ways that we behave. We use language to speak to each other. That's not uh, that's a learned thing. That's something we put on like a piece of clothes. We talked, we try to have manners. Most people do still try to have manners in how we behave toward one another, because that's how we are able to get along and be cooperative with one another. And so, we put on clothes, we go out into society, But even in that, we put on clothes that reflect who we are or what we're going to do. Um, but at the end of the day, being as much of our authentic self, you don't go outside naked, but I mean, some people do, but it's usually there are places for that. But it's just like there are places to be as openly authentic, as you possibly can be. But the most of I found that in my experience, the most of myself that I bring to a situation, the better. Uh, it works in harmonizing with other people. Um, so I carefully choose, what I wear to make it reflect, who I am, and that is to say, I adjust my behavior in ways that most reflect what I value and how I wish to interact with people. And for me, that's produced good experience, good harmony, good music, if you will.
What did you hear about the rose that grew from the crack in the concrete,
I believe I have.
proving nature's laws wrong? It learned to walk without having feet. Funny it
Walking down the
seems,
sidewalk.
funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else ever cared. That's a poem by another musical legend, Tupac Shakur. Was 19 years old when he wrote that poem.
Oh wow, that's great. No, I love that example, TJ, about being able to show up naked, for lack of a better visual. For me, it's just showing up to a space without masking.
Yeah,
A big thing I've
Yes.
noticed in my adulthood is just wherever I go, and this is why my emotions are challenged. It's literally I just cannot mask. I can't just appear to be inauthentic. It's so draining. So so having these safe spaces where I can show up as I need to be without having to mask, that to me is like a giant step into creating like peace and harmony. And I
yeah,
think the more you have to be in a space where you have to operate inauthentically, just
yeah,
mask, it just creates, let's say, feelings that are opposite of peace, opposite of tranquility. Even if it may look like peace temporarily, I
right.
think it's creating this framework that's unsustainable.
It's performative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It is. Yeah, you talked about illusions earlier. I think you said something about the separateness being an illusion. And I think, that when we put on a mask that doesn't reflect who we are, that we're carrying on that illusion of separation because now we're not really connecting our authentic self. And so the separation remains. And what looks like a connection is still an illusion.
Yeah, and as Jazz highlighted earlier, like it's vibrations. Everyone feels the vibration. So if someone's inauthentic, um, you'll feel that. We'll feel that, and it just makes the whole gathering just not just something that's a safer space. That's how I feel. That's how I feel when I'm in a space and I'm able to present myself authentically. It opens it up for a new level of harmony, and that's been my experience.
And people can tell whether you're putting on a face, so to speak, or you're being inauthentic. And it's a lot of work to do that,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of effort. And I've done that before. Like, want this person to like me, or maybe I would just say something and maybe I didn't mean anything by it, but I realized that I was being inauthentic. And hey, they might not like all of me or parts of me, and that's okay. But it's the freedom to show up as yourself because eventually it's going to come out. And that's can cause a lot of stress. And it's much more connecting to do that. I mean, we're always connected. However, it just allows for a flow and unity.
The word flow made me think of these videos that I see sometime where I forget what they call them, but there'll be like some kind of clogged drain or something. That's weird. And and there'll be somebody that comes and clears it. There's like water backed up or whatever, and then all of the water will just start to flow because that block isn't there anymore. So when you said flow, I thought of that, but I think it's connected to what we're talking about. Jazz was talking about energy, and energy flows and moves, and it's exchanged between people. And so, the less stuff that we, you know, take away from blocking that energy, the better the flow is. Just like you said, Stella Lynn.
Yeah, and it's more relaxed and you're engaged more. I mean, it's just and I do have a better interaction. I've noticed that in we're talking about in certain situations, if I just come in and I say I feel like I can be myself, and it's up to me. I can always choose that, but maybe a lot of us have had that experience where you go somewhere, I mean, you don't feel quite welcome or just not really sure the vibe of the place. So I guess that's what we're saying is more you can just be, just be, relax into that. Then it'll all flow from there.
I might say that I can have that experience of feeling of being off
Mhm.
or thinking that there's something wrong with other people. But if I can also do what you're saying from the beginning, like the seed thought again, is that I am comfortable, then it's kind of like it's reminding me of I'm seeing in my mind now an image or an experience of a wedding where somebody shows up or a couple of people show up and everybody doesn't want them there. So there's some kind of argumentation or thing that happens. But then there might be that one person who's just sitting in the corner, just eating popcorn, just watching everything happen. And it's like, well, why is that person able to just sit there and just relax while everything around them seems to be chaotic? So it's just that kind of thought process to get into to questions like, how can they do that? Some people will say there's something wrong with them, right? Because they don't care. They don't, it's like, how can you not care? How can you not say something? Let it be the mother, all right? And she just sits there and doesn't care. So how can you not say something while he's here or something like that?
Well, as you highlighted before, Terrence Lamont, it's the person that the task falls the responsibility to. Like you said, you planted I forgot what kind of tree. The berry tree.
Elderberry.
Elderberry tree, yeah. Elderberry has a lot of really good effects, actually. But you are responsible because you planted it for the well-being, for caring. Anybody else who comes by who gets the berries, they're just benefiting from your responsive care.
Yeah. And hopefully you're watering it
So,
and you're taking care of it, so
mhm.
so that they can really benefit.
And if it becomes a community garden, then other people can come and also take responsibility
Hmm.
and take care and plant their own berry trees so everyone can
Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah. Jazz, do you have a thought?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say regarding like if you are an elderberry, for example, just if you will, and the elderberryness is your authentic self, uh, being your authentic self is important because then at that point you will attract the right people into your life. And when we put on all
Yes.
these masks and we're just covering up trying to be better, quote unquote, in front of a group of people, if you will, then at that point we're attracting the wrong persons into our lives, and then we have to keep up with those masks and those things. And it's funny that you mentioned that poem earlier. Is I used to be really big into gardening, and it's just funny because whatever you guys believe in, whether it be infinite intelligence or God or whatever the case, the creator, he has a sense of humor, because I was trying so hard and fervently to grow things, and it just wasn't happening. And then I look between two pieces of concrete, and there it is in between the slab, and he just makes it grow. He's like, this isn't your show, this is my show. And so it's like, it's just letting go and letting it flow, and back to the harmony and the peace. Is when we are our true and authentic selves, then we basically have, we live in a different frequency. You know,
Yeah.
we let go of all fears, and we we're our authentic selves. And I think that's just it's a great place to be in.
Yeah, the phrase coming into harmony, comes to my mind. And that's like, because harmony is always present and it is what it is.
Right.
And we can come into harmony. Harmony is always present, always saying yes. It's waiting for us.
Yeah, we are all connected, and we all come from the undivided. And a really cool phrase that I think of a lot is coexist. It's something beautiful,
Yes.
because you just, like the guy that you mentioned that's in the back of the wedding, that he's just watching the entire thing. Once you realize that that's all this life is, it's just a movie, and you welcome all experiences, and you don't try to change anything, and truly enjoy everything for what it is. It's it becomes a great experience. And that happened to me in my trip. I had to learn to be like a palm tree, flexible, and not be rigorous and say, okay, this day this has to happen. If it wouldn't happen, it would be next time. And it's just acceptance. That's a really big key point, is just accept what it is. You can't change what's happening and what has already happened.
Yes, absolutely. This is the way to end the year. I like this. We got all these wonderful people. Thanks for coming, everybody. If y'all would like to share anything, please feel free. Yeah, so we're just talking about balance and harmony and peace in all situations, and not letting yourself be taken away, being moved out of your authentication. I wonder if anybody here has I mean, that's tough, right? Nobody said anything about the kind of harder experiences, right? Like, I was talking about a death in my family earlier, and I had another one when I was about 26. My oldest, my father, on his side of the family, he had 10 kids in his family, and he was the youngest. And his oldest sister passed away about, I don't know, 2005, 2006, something like that. And I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma with my brother and my mom, and we lived there. And one of my uncles and my brother and my uncle, my brother had this little bitty car. It's like I don't know what it was. It was some small car, like a little bit bigger than a Spark, right? It wasn't that small, but it was like a little bit bigger. All three of us are 6 foot, you know, are taller, and so my uncle and my brother, all three of us, drove from Tulsa all the way to Chicago, and it was a rough ride. We didn't have, we were. It just wasn't a good idea to be honest. We should, but we made it, you know. And when we got there, it was amazing, because the people who were there were people who I didn't know. I never met them before. I didn't know them. I was just trying to support my father, and because I didn't even know my aunt. She was much older than me, and I didn't really get a chance to interact with her. And so I was, in Chicago for one of the first times of my life, and driving on the highway at far distance for one of the first times in my life and just having this wild experience. But then I also had met a girl online that lived in Chicago. And about 4 months after I met her, my aunt died. And so it was just like this incredible synchronistic experience where I was going to come to this funeral and I met her. And it was just like all these different webs were tying together and things were happening, experiences. But it didn't come from a positive experience. I would have never come. I mean, I liked the girl, but I wasn't going to come to Chicago. It not at that time in my life. But because my aunt died and because my uncle and my brother wanted to go, it worked. We made it happen. So it's kind of like it was a negative experience, right? A death, but it brought all these other opportunities. I met this incredibly like grandmother, like, talk about medicine women or medicine men or like people who are the salt of the earth and that type of thing. Like one of my great great cousins or grand cousins or something. I don't know how we were related, but somehow I was related to this lady and she was like in her 80s. And I never seen someone walk like they were a tree. It's like she was part of the earth. She just owned every moment of her existence. Like she was full, she was total. There was nothing missing from this woman. I found myself kind of afraid of her, because she was so whole. And I would never have met her. But I
Interesting
know,
reaction.
yeah. Yeah, it was, I mean, and I don't know that I've ever told anybody about her before because it's just such a incredible and moving type of an experience. I don't know her name. I just will never forget her. Okay, David, have fun, man, at your improv show. So anyway, I don't know if anybody else has had some other kind of experience like that, like like a pretty hard experience, and maybe you were still able to see the good in it. I don't know.
I think it's a great example, like showing up. You know, because you were able to show up in that part of your life, you were just gifted this experience that you wouldn't have had if you didn't show up. That's a great reminder. You never know
I
how
had,
life will surprise you.
all right, I had no idea what I was getting into. You know,
Then I'm just gonna fold myself up in this little car and go.
it didn't go.
See what happens.
Yeah,
And Jazz, you reminded me of a saying earlier when you were speaking about being authentic and how that attraction principle works. If you're not your authentic self, you're not really attracting the people that will interact best with you. But it made me think of that old phrase, real recognizes real. Because it's true. When you're your real self, you attract, for lack of a better description, real people, or at least the people that connect best with you. But yeah,
yeah,
if you're inauthentic, i- if you're not being the person you want to be, you're not going to be around the people you want to be around. So real recognize real.
yeah,
I think another similar saying is they like to say is it takes one to know one.
yeah. And love recognizes itself too. Sounds like real recognizes real. Like what? How would Rumi say that? So I'm thinking about the poetics of that there's so many different ways you can touch on that, how that harmony, how that resonance can work.
Yeah, Jazz mentioned coexist and some different ways and perspectives that people have on what God is or what the creator is, or source, and all of that. I think Terrence Lamont, one way that I would phrase that is most traditions teach that we're made in the image of God, or we're connected to God, or however it's described in whatever tradition. The way that works out for me and what you're describing is, when I look at another person, that's what I should look for in them, not all of the the stuff outside the body, the thoughts, the experiences that we have, but I'm looking for that divine spark that lives in everybody. And that's what I want to connect with. That's going to be the most authentic thing, even if they're not, quote unquote, showing up as their authentic self. And so I think that's also true of situations like you described, a situation that might be viewed as negative, where you were able to find the divine spark in that experience and appreciate it. So I think that's an important thing to practice. It takes practice to do, because we've learned so many ways of not doing that that sometimes it can be difficult to go back to that. When we're children, it's natural.
Right. Yeah. So if somebody is on a computer, you could share that photo that I just put in the chat, which this is the way to end the year, y'all. I mean, you know what? See, that's the thing, right? I could say that, but what if this is the way to begin the year? Or what if this is the way to just be? But there's a comfort in saying this is the way to end the year. But if you can see that photo, this is exactly what TJ just said. I found this a few months ago, just scouring Facebook for whatever reason. I was scouring Facebook, and I found this.
You found the divine spark in Facebook too.
Well, what's interesting is, spotlighting Rumi. The Sufi practice is purification of the nafs, and what that is basically is removal of the ego. What causes all this disharmony is just how we perceive the world, which is not reality. And if we just remove ourselves, what our desires are, all that's left is what we saw in the image, just God. We see God in everything. We see the divine spark in everything, because no longer are we looking for something. It's just there. So it's like, but it's easier said than done, right? Because
That's
we
what I'm
have all
saying.
these,
Yeah. Right.
desires, and then this human body has all these needs.
Right.
So we do our best.
We do our best. That's all we can do.
Whatever we're capable of doing.
Yeah. And that's what we do in every moment, is we actually can only choose what we think is good. That's all we can actually do. We can only do what we think is right. No matter how other people feel about it, or no matter even how we feel about it. We can only do what we think is actually what we're supposed to be doing.
I remember a basketball coach, Mr. Dana Ford, and one of his sayings was, "Do the next right thing." Is what he would teach his players, and was kind of like his message to the world. No matter what happens, just do the next right thing. If you feel like you didn't quite get it right the last time, that's okay. Do the next right thing. Make the next right decision. And just let the rest go. And I found that to be inspiring. I appreciated that message from him.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. Oh my gosh, this is great.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been doing this for an hour. This is excellent. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you. So the NPA in front of Terrence Lamont is National Peace Ambassador for the School of Metaphysics. So the School of Metaphysics created a document quite a while ago. Some people did, some humans did, some souls used their hands to write. And they wrote something called the Universal Peace Covenant. And we've learned from that document, as we keep reading it, we keep letting it feed our thinking process as a human race and as people in the School of Metaphysics. And so we created this discussion group 2 years ago. We called it Peace is Built Through Communication because that was a phrase from this document. There's 777 words, and it fits on one front sheet of paper. And you can experience that with us the way we experience it right now on Zoom. You can go to peacedome.org, Peace, DOME, because we have a dome. We have a building in Wendyville, Missouri that we call the Peace Dome. So we named the website peacedome.org, which is how I think some of y'all, or maybe most of y'all, found this. So you can go back there, and in the morning tomorrow, we'll read the Universal Peace Covenant at 7:30 Central Time. I don't know where all y'all are. Normally we try to talk to everybody and find out who you are and where you are, but that's all good. Most of us are in America, and we live in a Central Time zone. So every single morning at 7:30, we get up and we read the Universal Peace Covenant together. It's a short document, like I said, and you can experience that with us. We've been doing it for 2,000, what? How many days?
I want to say close to 2090, 2009.
2090, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do tomorrow, but yeah.
Every single day. We even do it on my birthday.
Mhm.
We did it on TJ's birthday. We do it on Christmas yesterday.
Did it on
We
Christmas yesterday. Yeah.
Mhm.
we just keep it moving, man, every morning, 7:30. So y'all can join us. That would be great. And then afterwards, we have another discussion similar to this. It normally doesn't last this long, but we touch on some things, whatever comes up. Or you can just go about your business and do what you want to do, but you can start your day off with a little bit of peace.
That's pretty cool. I'm in Florida, by the way, so I'm an hour ahead. And I get up
Okay.
early for work anyway, so I think that's probably be joining you all. Had a great experience, so thank you all.
Thank
Yeah,
you
man.
for being here.
Absolutely. Really
Yep.
glad you came.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we had a rocky start, so I'm probably going to edit this and take it off of the live, platform type, because in the beginning it was a little crazy. But I'll post it on Facebook. So we also have the Universal Peace Covenant page on Facebook, so y'all could join that page too if you want to.
Sweet.
And this is for everybody out there. Come one, come all. Read the Peace Covenant with us. Join the movement. Thank you, Jerry, for your insightful leading and for inviting all the people you invited and for all the energy that we created, the symphony that we have here. All of you can bow because we just put down a very beautiful harmonic experience. Peace be with y'all.
Music.